Hello, this is Old Sins Reviews, being done by Joseph Cadotte, author of Job herself, a science fiction space opera where Facebook keeps on sending me messages, so I'm getting caught up in this. Anyways, it's a space opera mix of the Book of Job and the Count of Monte Cristo. So, anyways, I just finished reading Ready Player One by Ernest Cline on the Kindle from my library because that's the most cyberpunk way to do that. And since this is a retro cyberpunk story, I might as well. The author in the book says torrenting is okay, so take that as you will. I decided not to torrent because, as an author myself, I prefer people to buy my stuff. But I understand if you want to do that otherwise. What do I think of Ready Player One, which is being made into a movie and has been universally praised? It's okay. It's not the world's greatest book. It's not even the best science fiction book I've read that year. In fact, about half the video games I've played that are RPGs are better. But if you like cyberpunk, this is a book which has cyberpunk in it. Better done by Neil Stephenson in basically every way. But it does have a few good things going for it. It almost non-stop discourse on 1980s pop culture. So if you like 1980s pop culture, that's a good thing. It has a lot of young adult tropes are done pretty well in here. Complete with a very well portrayed depiction of an online to live romance, which is rarely done. Something that starts off solely online and continues to blossom in reality. I like that bit. The characters are all decent, fairly well done. There's not much complexity in them beyond the four quasi-protagonist characters. The villain is a little bit mustache twirling, and the special guy who saves the day, the Deus Ex Machina character, is a little saintly, but he's based on Steve Wozniak as far as I can tell, and Steve Wozniak was the not evil member of the Jobs Wozniak team, so I think that's appropriate. So those are things going for it. The story is somewhat ridiculous, but in a way that's quasi-understandable. I could see someone totally doing this. The problem is the environment that this is set in is a kind of Malthusian nightmare dystopia, which wouldn't have been plausible to the average reader from the early 90s on, which is, again, why I reference Stevenson, because Stevenson's great work, although he did better works after, but his great novel, Snow Crash, probably is the last book written and published during that was feasible. This kind of nightmare world was of this sort was feasible. Another great work at that time was Matt Ruff's Sewer, Gas, and Electric. If you want good cyberpunk, I recommend either of those two more. As I mentioned, this is 80s nostalgia overflow, and that's pretty much what you're going to get. I hope you like 80s nostalgia because, frankly, it is literally one of the major plot elements, overarching themes of the work. I'm not sure why, but hey, that was the era I grew up in. That was the era that the motivating character, let's call him, grew up in. So hey, that's just fine, right, as it is. Now, what are my real objections to this beyond what I said? There's an awful lot of how to put it? There's an awful lot of downloading of content to this work, and it gets overwhelming very fast, and it's not necessarily content which is interesting if you live through that time period or if you're aware of that time period. I really think it's much more of a young adult work than an adult work, because frankly, if you're an adult who doesn't know what Blade Runner is, which is a plot point, and they take a time to explain Blade Runner to you, then you probably shouldn't be reading this book. You should go watch Blade Runner first. And if you don't like Japanese giant robot shows and so on, you know, that's a problem. But the biggest issue is there is, in the standard info dump, which every science fiction author is guilty of, there is a "this is how it is" statement, which goes on for about 3 pages, and it's almost certainly written by the author. It is not in the voice of the character, of the protagonist of the book, and it jumps you out of the book and it takes you a bit to go back in. There are a lot of problems with it. While it's feasible that the character would feel this way given his environment that he grows up in, and actually I think quite likely, the way it's established as a "this is the way it is, author on high" statement comes across as the author having a bunch of juvenile views as opposed to just the protagonist, and I'm not sure I like that. Is it worth reading? Ultimately, if you like a retro cyberpunk novel that's targeted towards young adults, I would say it's a book that's worth looking at. Don't buy this book. It's not worth the money. But definitely check it out from the library if you're interested in the upcoming movie. It should be something which you want to see. And I don't know how they're going to do the movie and make it any better than Wreck-It Ralph, which I think does this in spades. Cyberpunk movies have tended to not do well, the Matrix trilogy being the only immediate exception besides the 13th Floor that I can think of. So I hope you guys find this useful. I know I said I'd talk about conspiracies this time around, but I'm not. That'll be next. I happen to be at the beach. I don't have all my stuff for conspiracy theories. I think you can tell I'm at the beach. So, good day. This has been Joseph Cadotte for Old Sins Reviews.